Hey everyone, Aegis here. Today we'll be going over a budget deck list for the new Lightning Runeblade Hero, Aurora Shooting Star, that you can bring to your local armory. Big shout out to my locals who have been helping me put these lists together. You'll be able to find the list in the description down below. As a Lightning hero, Aurora is all about rushing the opponent down and gaining potent offensive synergies as she links one card into the next. With her high damage, she's aiming to end the game quickly, though she can often be vulnerable to defensive decks which can run her out of gas, as well as disruptive decks that can proactively negate her plans. If hitting hard, hitting fast, and intricate sequencing where every hand is a puzzle sounds like fun, then Aurora may be the hero for you. One consideration I had when putting this deck together was that it can be viewed as an upgrade to the Aurora First Strike deck. There are a couple cards exclusive to that deck, and those cards have a decently high price on the secondary market. So for this deck tech, I've included 2 copies of each of them, so you only need to buy 1 copy of First Strike to put this together. To start, Aurora is defined by her cheap attacks that pack a punch. Some of her signature plays are Arcanic Shockwave, Crackling, Entwined Lightning, Flittering Charge, Lightning Surge, Ravenous Rabble, Second Strike, Snatch, and Static Shock. These cards form the core of her deck, most of which will just be 4 damage with Go Again. If the opponent only blocks for 3 each with a card, then each time you send in an attack for 4, you will be whittling them down. Arcanic Shockwave, Crackling, Snatch, and Static Shock are notable for not having Go Again, but make up for it by typically hitting 5 damage if you meet a condition, or in Snatch's case, on hit draw a card. These cards, along with Lightning Form, if your hand had the pitch for it, are your premier turn enders. So ideally you only want one of them to be in each hand. This is where Aurora's hero ability kicks in, where if you've played a lightning card in a turn, you can pay 2 resources to create an embodiment of lightning, which can give one of these cards Go Again. I'll touch on it later, but Snapdragon Scalers is a once per game ability to give one of these attacks Go Again as well. One of the key features of the Rosetta Lightning Heroes is their focus on instant cards. Instants can be played anytime you have priority, and you can do some sneaky plays if you land the timing right. For simple instants, we have Electrostatic Discharge, Lightning Press, and Sigil of Solace in the sideboard. These instants can be important, particularly for Flittering Charge to make sure it has Go Again, while counting as lightning cards played for your hero ability and weapon. The tricky instant, and one of my favorite cards in the set, is Electromagnetic Somersault. This card returns an attack action card to your hand after attacking with it, allowing you to use your 0 for 4 attacks twice in the same turn. It also has some fun interactions on defense, allowing you to block with 2 attack action cards and return them to the hand after damage to keep them for your own turn. This flexibility makes it particularly powerful. Just remember that you need to play Somersault before damage. If you play it after damage, it will miss the trigger timing to return the cards to your hand. With the lightning side covered, let's look at some of the Runeblade cards. Runeblades are defined by playing non-attack actions to mix with their attacks, as well as mixing in some arcane damage with their physical. Electrify is an unassuming non-attack, but it can be potent if played from Arsenal. If you pitch a blue card into it, it will replace itself and leave 2 resources floating, exactly enough for your hero ability if you need it, as well as adding a deadly on-hit to your next attack action cards. Burn Up Shock is one of the most powerful cards in the deck, on its own dealing 1 arcane damage with Shock, and then threatening 4 damage arcane on hit on all of your attacks, including your weapon. There are some less exciting, but no less powerful non-attacks, like Sizzle and its cousin Weave Lightning. Sizzle is the slightly better of the 2, because it can apply to your weapon, but as it's one of the exclusive cards in the First Strike deck, the 3rd copy is much more expensive than the first 2. Finally, there's Aurora's specialization, Arc Lightning. The card is a potent finisher, causing nearly everything you do to deal a point of arcane damage, including itself, as well as giving whatever is played after it Go Again. Winning with this deck will often involve finding ways to maximize the damage output of this card. The equipment is pretty straightforward. Snapdragon Scalers is a powerful card even outside budget decks for its ability to give go again to powerhouses like Snatch, or potentially saving a hand that doesn't have enough action points to work. Vexing Quillhand is a nice piece of equipment in the arm slot that can make 2 Rune Chants, as well as giving you some Arcane Barrier. Aether Ironweave is a nice piece for aggressive decks, as you can get a point of block value out of it, and then pop it for 2 resources on any turn that you have played an attack and a non-attack action card. Flash of Brilliance doesn't really have any synergies with this particular list, and is only here for the block value. The weapon Starfall is an added 2 points of damage to every turn you have at least 1 pitch left in, letting you turn every blue in your hand into 2 damage from Starfall and a hero activation. Speaking of blue cards, one thing I'm sure you've noticed is that there are very, very few of them. If we flip over to the stats page, you can see that there's a 43% chance of 4-card hands that have no blues in them. But that's not really a problem, because the deck only has 12 cards in it that cost anything at all. Most of the time, if you draw a blue card, you'll be using it for Aurora's ability and Starfall's attack. Let's move on to sideboarding, or how to handle heroes where your main game plan may be less effective. First on the docket is Fatigue. A Fatigue deck's goal is to block everything you try until you run out of damage in your deck, and then they'll kill you back with some more efficient endgames. Often heroes like Guardians, some Warriors, and sometimes Earth heroes will try this against you. If you try to simply maximize damage of each turn cycle, you'll often find yourself running out of cards while the opponent is still healthy. So how do we get around it? The 2 main strategies Aurora has are by spreading out her damage by using her weapon more, and by setting up a Flicker Wisp combo. Flicker Wisp is an old Majestic from Tales of Aria that saw very little play until Aurora came to town. It simply reads that if it's fused, so if you show your opponent a lightning card in your hand as you play it, it will give you an effect that buffs all arcane damage you deal that turn by 1, and then it deals 1 damage buffed to 2 itself. Its main synergy is with Arc Lightning, but rather than explain it, why don't I show you? Let's look at an example of what this combo turn can look like. You always start with Flicker Wisp, and usually you want to fuse with Arc Lightning because that's the card we're playing next. When Flicker Wisp resolves, it will deal 2 arcane to the opponent. We can then play Arc Lightning, which will trigger it itself because it has go again, dealing 2 more arcane to the opponent. If we play Electrify from Arsenal, we'll get to draw a card, and because it has go again, that's 2 more arcane. Burn Up Shock. Now the interesting thing about Burn Up Shock is that when melded, both sides of the cards have properties of both sides, which means Shock is now an action so that it will be buffed by Flicker Wisp, so this will send in 2 arcane to the opponent. Then when Burn Up resolves with go again, it will send 2 more arcane to the opponent. We can pop Vexing Quillhand to make 2 Rune Chants, and it has go again, so that's 2 more arcane. If we then attack with Starfall, we'll send the 2 Rune Chants, 2 physical, on hit Burn Up, which will deal 5 arcane, buffed by Flicker Wisp. And then 2 arcane from go again. And we can finish the turn with Lightning Surge for 4 physical, and then the on hit 3 damage from Electrify. Let's see how much damage that was. So on that turn, we dealt 30 damage. If that's not enough to finish the game, I don't know what is. The next archetype you may face is Disruption, largely from Assassins and Rangers. Disruptive decks tend to give you debuffs that make your turn much weaker, so beating them means you need to increase your blocking ability with cards like Sink Below, that may be able to prevent their nasty on-hits, as well as buckle down to play a grinding game where you send only a few cards each turn. If Go Again isn't reliable, you may need to be content with turns that look like playing a single buff into a single attack. But Aurora's numbers are good enough on their own that while unfavored, she can certainly still push through. Next we'll talk on Illusionist. For both Illusionists, the best strategy is to kill them quickly so they never get a chance to develop their board states. One trick you have up your sleeve is with the card Vaporize Shock. This can, at instant speed, ping the opponent for 1 arcane damage, and if it deals any damage, destroy an aura they control. This card can be played either at the end of a long turn to guarantee destroying an important Spectra aura, or as a sneaky way of attacking the opponent on their own turn, perhaps destroying a ward permanent that's attacking you. Finally, for Kano, your goal is just to kill him fast and pray he doesn't find his combo quickly. If your local area is filled with Kanos, you can add some Oasis Respites to the deck. But for the most local metagames, Kano isn't a big enough player to be worth teching for. Alright then, with that you should be ready to go forth and electrify the competition at your local armory.